The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Wednesday, the 19th of August, 2026. We're live here at CHDTV, and here's our show today. In just a moment, I will be bringing on Brian Hooker, our Chief Scientific Officer, to talk about COVID and miscarriage, Fauci knew, and various other subjects as well. Then, very important, we're going to go to Mark Baker. We're going to be talking about LED, the lights that blind us, and your health. We have not covered this before, and it's imperative that we are having this conversation today. Then Zoey O'Toole, our publishing coordinator, our book section of CHD, will be coming on to tell us about a brand new book coming out at Children's Health Defense. Then we're going to go to a live story with Becky about the very sad loss of her wonderful husband, and we're going to be hearing that story live. So we are live for the next hour on CHD TV. So let's bring on Brian Hooker. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Polly. How are you?
Oh, very well. Thank you, Brian. All right. Well, look, this is really important because let's start off with the Fauci. We're late covering this, actually.
Right.
Fauci raised COVID vaccine miscarriage risk, text reveal. So what is the true story here? Because the internet's blowing up with stuff. It's really difficult to know actually what is true and what's not.
Well, what is true is that this was his government cell phone. This was not his property. This is a property of the U.S. government. And although he tried to delete contacts, he tried to delete many, many texts, none of those should be deleted and they all should be recovered, first of all. Second of all, he was warned about a miscarriage risk in the first trimester. He actually raised the question, and the question eventually went to the head of the vaccine division of the National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. His name is Dr. David Mascola. David Mascola said, "We never tested the COVID shot on first trimester pregnancies. We felt that it would be too risky, that was a time where miscarriage would be a huge risk, and that also there would be a risk of cytokine storm." And so Fauci echoed that particular risk in several other texts. It escapes me the other individuals that were involved. I know that Janet Woodcook, who was the FDA administrator at the time, also echoed the same risk. But Polly, that's not what they told the public. They said that there were no safety concerns at all throughout pregnancy. That was the bottom line. That is what they told people, and that is what is being touted even to this day, that COVID shots are safe for pregnant women in any trimester of pregnancy. But yet this has never been appropriately tested. And we know that VAERS exploded with miscarriage reports very, very quickly after the release of the COVID shot, so much so that they had to hire an independent contractor to answer all of the VAERS reports that were coming in those first months of the rollout. And so, this is like nothing we've seen before. The COVID vaccine injuries in VAERS eclipse the entire rest of the history of the VAERS database, 35 years worth of VAERS database, all other vaccines combined. The COVID shot has produced more vaccine injuries. So we know that there's a risk in the first trimester, second trimester, third trimester of pregnancy. Whether you're pregnant or not, there is a significant risk to the COVID shot. And these are officials that are basically playing God with pregnant women during the COVID pandemic and deciding that they'll just go ahead and lie about it.
Yeah. And Brian, how many American babies did we lose for this? And I spoke to a woman not that long ago who I didn't have it in my heart to ask her if she'd had the COVID shot, but she talked about losing her baby and how it destroyed their family. People don't understand how some people can be trying for a baby for years, eventually get pregnant, and get this advice to have a vaccine and they lose their one and only chance of having a child?
Well, we've heard so many reports of this over and over and over again. And even those that are doing in vitro fertilization and assisted conception, how difficult it becomes after having a COVID shot. And there was even a study that came out of Germany that showed that the spike protein from the COVID shot was on the baby side, the fetal side of the placenta. So they were testing placental tissue, and there's a maternal side, there's the mom, and then there's a fetal side that goes to the baby. And it was very, very clear that the spike protein was lighting up on the fetal side. So you can not tell me that baby was not exposed to the components of the COVID shot. It is just, it's plain, it's right there. Everything that they told us was a big fat lie.
So let's just summarize this up. Fauci knew
Yeah.
there was a problem, and his
Right.
friends, they knew there
Right.
was a problem, and yet they still went out with the pregnant women must get vaccinated. So if they knew, isn't that kind of murder? I'm
It
sorry.
is murder. It is murder. And at the center of it, besides Fauci, was Peter Marks, who said, we should not go out with this because this might contribute to vaccine hesitancy. Where have we heard that before? You gotta crack a few eggs to make an omelet. So sorry if you happen to be one of those few eggs. And so it was to them, it was acceptable collateral damage against this obsession that they had with infectious disease, with an infection, by the way, that Tony Fauci funded the development of.
Now, Brian, this is a question that so many people ask us. We talk about these things on CHDTV the whole time. We talk about the
Right.
despair, the loss. But where's the accountability? Is that ever going to happen? Or are we just going to keep highlighting and talking about it? Is there anything going to be done for the lies that were told and the people that died and the fetuses that died? Is there anything going to ever be done about this?
Absolutely. I think that the state's attorney generals will do something about this. The the pardon that was given, the preemptive presidential pardon that was given to Anthony Fauci, does not apply to state law. And so, I'm looking forward to seeing what these attorneys general will do in order to prosecute him for crimes against humanity that affected every state of the 50 states. The federal pardon does not trump state law. And I also know that there are individuals in the federal government that are also looking for ways around that. That was an auto pen pardon. That was an auto pen signature. And to me, that's not valid. And it was not a valid pardon in the first place in terms of having a preemptive pardon. I am not an attorney, but I saw people suffer and die because of the madness of Tony Fauci.
And Brian, while we're on the subject of pregnancy, because I've done so many interviews with women that lost their babies after the DTaP and the flu,
Right.
we're not giving out medical advice. People, do your own research. But from what the people tell us, the people that we've interviewed, there is no such thing as a safe vaccine during pregnancy at all.
No, there is no such thing as a safe vaccine really ever. I think everybody takes a hit in some way, shape, or form when they decide to get a vaccination. And so let's take a very vulnerable period of development, the most early period of development of an unborn child, and we'll just monkey with it. The flu shot recommended in any trimester of pregnancy, regardless of whether it contained thimerosal or not. I'm thankful that Secretary Kennedy has made sure that those shots do not contain thimerosal. The Tdap given in the third trimester of pregnancy, now the RSV vaccine given in the third trimester of pregnancy, because it showed that it caused early labor, it caused preterm labor. And then the COVID shot given in any trimester of pregnancy, upwards to 8 needle sticks. This used to be a time that was sacred. It used to be a time of no medicine, of no vaccines whatsoever. But as soon as pharma found out that they could make a buck over scaring pregnant women into getting vaccinated, then that's when the door opened.
Right, this is a hard question for you, and you may not be able to answer it, but I've had more than one person ask me this question. So they miscarried, they did not get the shot, but their husbands did. Could that be a shedding issue that could cause a miscarriage? Is that possible?
That is possible. We see so much evidence of transmission of the COVID shot, the COVID gene therapy, whatever you want to call it, person to person. They've looked at households where individuals receive the COVID vaccine and then other individuals who never had COVID all of a sudden come up with COVID antibodies. Okay. So you can't tell me that that isn't a shedding aspect of COVID. And they've also shown that there is a bystander effect. Children's Health Defense was a part of a project called My Cycle Story. We showed that the proximity that women had to COVID vaccinated individuals during their daily life would correlate to statistically significant menstrual issues, other types of female issues after the vaccine was given to the individual. So the bystanders they had statistically significant problems, regardless of whether they had the COVID shot, they did not. And none of them had had the COVID virus at that point in time. So something is going on. We know that it's going on. We also know that the next thing that will be shoved down our throats are self-amplifying messenger RNA shots, and they are designed to shed. They are designed to vaccinate your neighbors, to vaccinate your coworkers, bystanders. They claim up and down that that's not the case. It's not the instance, but you can just look at the technology from a genetic engineering standpoint and see how it would replicate in mammalian cells, and it would replicate if it went from person to person, it would replicate and survive.
Here's what I think is going to happen, just a prediction. I think they're going to separate the MMR. They're going to do an mRNA measles shot. It's going to spread measles like crazy. And then they're going to blame the fact that we stopped the MMR. Anyway, that's just my forecast, having been in the game a long time. But I think that's where we're going. It's just one big...
You never know. You never know what they're going to pull next. Whatever it is, it's always a surprise. It's always for the convenience of the pharmaceutical industry. Right. Again, I am so thankful for Secretary Kennedy and the things that he is doing, given the obstacles in a deep state entrenched HHS for years and years and years.
Absolutely. All right, let's cover Morens. Morens, however you say his name.
David Morens is a former assistant to Anthony Fauci at NIAID, the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Diseases. He has pled guilty to commit conspiracy, and this was at Fauci's bequest that he did this. He avoided FOIA requests and he avoided the Federal Records Act by taking federal information and using his private Gmail account in order to cover up the fact that after the gain of function research at Wuhan Institute of Virology was shut down and the government money that was funding that research was shut down, it was restarted silently, very, very quietly in 2022 and 2023. The way that was hidden was Morens was using his private Gmail in order to email Peter Dachak at EcoHealth Alliance and also to alert the other individuals that were involved in linkages of the grant. They were so fixated on getting this gain of function research done that they infected the entire world with a virus, but yet they had to keep the money flowing to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Morens covered it up. He is the fall guy. Fauci should have gone down with him. This is where his federal pardon comes into play. But Morens can face upwards to 5 years in federal prison.
It's so dark and twisted and deep. Right. Okay. So apparently we have, or we're about to have, a new FDA commissioner. Who is it? And do we like this person? I think probably not.
Heidi Overton, she's an interesting character. There have been instances where Dr. Overton has been more of a gatekeeper in the things that Maha would like, the things that Secretary Kennedy would like. And I also know that she has a very, very close relationship with Susie Wiles in the White House. And that could spell big pharma for the FDA. I was quite a fan of Marty McCary before he was fired as FDA commissioner. To me, I am not sure, but I don't necessarily think this is good news. I'm reserving the right to be wrong, Heidi, if you're listening. I am reserving the right to be wrong on this, but I do know the FDA just recently approved an mRNA flu shot for individuals in the United States 50 years old and older. Something has to happen. It's going in the wrong direction. And so if we have more of the same, then we need to be breathing down the necks of FDA.
We do. Brian Hooker, thank you for being on so early from California this morning. We do appreciate you immensely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
All right, everyone, we're going to go to Mark Baker. Good morning, Mark. Let's talk about LEDs and how they are, from my personal opinion, blinding us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Right, so I think that if it's okay with you, can we just start with what even is an LED light?
Light emitting diode. It's a solid state light, a product that is solid state and emits light in a directional manner. Little chips. They're very powerful, kind of a light that we've never seen on the planet Earth before. And we consider it at the Soft Lights Foundation to be a hazardous type of light.
And Mark, there's right now we're doing back to school campaign, and we have children sitting in schools with LED lights brightly shining on. That must affect their health immensely.
Yeah, so the really big deal is astonishing research by Dr. Glenn Jeffrey and others in the United Kingdom that have shown, and this is only in the last 2 or 3 years, that they've shown that infrared light penetrates through our clothes and through our skin and deep into our tissues. And this infrared light powers our cells. The mitochondria inside the cells create ATP, which gives us energy. Therefore, this infrared light is critical to our cellular processes, brand new research. And yet the LEDs that they've now installed in our children's classrooms are missing the infrared. That means the children are sitting there trying to study and learn, and yet their cells are not being powered. And so we need to take this new research and get the schools to remove, in my opinion, remove the LED lights and put in natural lighting, such as fiber optics coming from the roof, or solar tubes, windows, skylights, etc., and then supplement that with incandescent light bulbs.
Mark, we were talking just before we went live. I mean, it's so hard to find lights that haven't got LEDs. And as you mentioned, with the marketing, you think you found one, and then you read the description, and oh yeah, there we go again. There's the LED. I mean, it's the schools are going to say we can't find these lights.
Oh yeah, so we're in this. It's a major problem, and at the Soft Lights Foundation, we're trying to address that. Senator Mike Lee has introduced an act called the LIT Act, Liberating Incandescent Technology. It hasn't gone anywhere so far, but we support that. It's the federal government, and via the Department of Energy, establish regulations that restrict the sale of incandescent light bulbs. And so the side effect is that now we cannot get the light that we need. They didn't study LED lights. They didn't collaborate with the Food and Drug Administration to make sure that LED light was safe. And now the manufacturers and the distributors cannot sell those products unless you go and try to get a specialty bulb or a rough service bulb, or try to find workarounds. So one of the things that we have to do is get the government to undo this regulation that restricted the sale of incandescent light bulbs so that people can start buying them again.
Yeah, and so these children are sitting in the schools with these LED lights. They've got 5G towers. They've got all kind of craziness. What are the symptoms? How do you know if your child is suffering from LED light syndrome. I don't know if that's a thing, I just made that up, but how do you know if that's something you need to be campaigning as opposed to the 5G, which of course you need to campaign for as well?
Well, amazingly, the symptoms are quite similar. There is a classification called EMR syndrome. And so that's typically associated with radio frequency illness, such as from cell towers and Wi-Fi. But the symptoms from exposure to LED lights would be similar, such as nausea, brain fog, and any kind of neurological reaction. I mean, you can't really just say just because you feel weird that it's LED lights. But lots of people that I know, our supporters, can feel this reaction to when they're exposed to LED light. It can be the flicker, digital flicker. It can be the spectral distribution with the intense blue light. It could be this directionality because it's very, very intense. And so, like me personally, I've gone into grocery stores or big box stores and have run out of the store because I can feel this energy. So if we just put the label EMR syndrome, that would sort of cover this reactions that people are having to electromagnetic radiation.
To have this FOIA lawsuit against the FDA, I think we just saw where you could submit. So talk us through what you actually want the people to do. Press on that button and fill out the form.
Okay, so on our website, softlights.org, if you go to that homepage, there's a button that says LED incident submission. These come to us, and you can describe your reaction to LEDs. It could be LED headlights on cars, street lights, flashing lights from police cars, anything, and you can see what others have posted. And then we collect these and we submit them to the Food and Drug Administration. We have submitted nearly 600 incident reports so far. So while the FDA is saying there's nothing wrong with LED lights and they've never studied it, in fact, they now have close to 600 submissions from our people that have come to our website. So this is now part of the public record. And we intend to use those records later on as we attempt to get the FDA to do their job and to test and evaluate LED products.
Mark, let's talk about cars for a second, because I don't know about our viewers, but I find it really hard to drive at night now with these intense lights. They can literally blind you. Actually, not just at night, during the day as well. I mean, you can see it in your rearview mirror. They're so strong.
Oh, this is the number one complaint. So whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you're complaining about LED headlights. And so this is a collaboration failure between the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, and the Food and Drug Administration. NHTSA says, oh, well, you know, health effects or the impacts on our eyes, that's health things, that's the FDA. The FDA says, oh, well, you know, cars, that's not our job. That's the NHTSA's job. So we have a regulatory vacuum. Nobody has looked into this. Is this light safe for our eyes? Absolutely not. There are no limits on the amount of blue wavelength light coming out of these car headlights. So in the old days, where we used to have halogens and incandescent or tungsten filament headlamps, the color temperature is around 2700 Kelvin. Today, modern LED headlights have a color temperature of around 6,500 Kelvin. What that means is that it's extreme blue, which is high intensity. It's a photobiological hazard. We should not be subjected to this type of light in our eyes. This is the job of the FDA and the NHTSA to collaborate and get this fixed. The other problem is that NHTSA has not established limits on intensity for most of the area coming out of the headlight. So they have some specifications, but they never redesign them for LEDs. They're so powerful. And so we have been, the Soft Lights Foundation has submitted petitions, which have been ignored. We have contacted Congress, and one of our champions is Representative Marie Gluesenkamp Perez in Washington State. She is the only one in Congress trying to get the NHTSA to do something. So we support her efforts because this is a major, major problem.
Why on earth did we change to LED lights? What's the purpose of them? When they hurt our health, they blind us. Why did we do that?
Well, it's complex, but the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety has always pushed brighter is better. And so the insurance companies think that by making headlights really, really bright, that the drivers now will be safe because they can see long distances, completely ignoring the fact that there's other people coming towards them. And so brighter is not always better. So what occurred is that the IIHS developed some ratings for good headlights and bad headlights. So the automakers tried to achieve this good headlight rating. Well, this good headlight rating is totally defective because it really doesn't account properly for other people, pedestrians, bicyclists, babies and strollers, car drivers coming towards them. So now we have, it's called glare. So now the lights have achieved what the IIHS wanted, very, very bright. But yeah, way too bright. And now we're all suffering. And it's just become, for many people, it's just impossible to drive at night. And so they stay home.
So let's say you get the attention of the powers that be and they say, right, Mark, okay, what do you want us to do about it? What would be your solution to this?
Oh, there's so many solutions that are, it's all regulatory. It's simple in my mind. You just comply with the laws that say that you need to protect public health and safety. So we want so recently I filed a lawsuit against the Food and Drug Administration because I had submitted a FOIA request last year and they haven't delivered the records. The records would show what work are they doing in terms of assessing the impacts of LED lights, all kinds of different products that use LEDs, and what are the impacts? How are they impacting our health? And since the FDA did not provide the records, I filed a lawsuit just recently, and then we'll try to get those records disclosed, and that'll show us what they are doing. Have they been doing anything at all? Have they been studying this issue, or are they just completely ignoring the issue? So once we get them to acknowledge the problems and assign staff members, do some research and publish some proposed regulations, we can solve these problems quite easily. We just need to set some limits, some health limits on, for example, on car headlights. What's the maximum intensity that's comfortable for us? What about flicker? Many people can see the flicker on the headlights. So what about the limits on that? And especially blue wavelength light. We need to get rid of the blue light out of the car headlights.
And like Martin, so people who are saying, just like I told you before, I need garden lights and I can't find any that are not LED. Is there somewhere we can support people that are not using LED? Where can we go to get these things?
Well, because the government has unwisely limited our access to safe lighting, it's kind of not that easy. But there are companies that sell them on Amazon and 1000bulbs.com. You can look for specialty lights. You can look for rough surface lights. You can look for low power lights. Those are not restricted. So garden lights, typically, you just look for the product you want. Make sure that when you look through the marketing information, it can say stuff like incandescent like or something. That's still an LED. So if you don't want an LED, then you have to make sure that the word, it's truly an incandescent type of light.
Mark, how important is this subject for potentially maybe some of our viewers saying, we're fighting the vaccines, we're fighting geoengineering, we're fighting this. How important is the LED light situation?
Oh, it is so important. So people don't think of it in terms of electromagnetic radiation, but that's what it is, a very narrow slice of the electromagnetic spectrum. And so just like the radio frequency part of the spectrum, microwave ovens, lasers, they're all dangerous. They can be useful, but they're also hazardous. And so unfortunately, like CHD is doing all this other work on food safety and vaccines and everything else. Now we're bringing to you another problem. So, but it's just as important because, as you mentioned, headlights are everywhere. LED streetlights are everywhere. Children's classrooms now, and this research showing that the LED light is not providing the energy that we need. So this needs to be studied, and it's it's a global problem.
And Mark, at the eyes of these young children, I see even on the sports field, these lights are so powerful, they're blinding them as they're playing. Do we have science on this? So for the people out there, I don't know why you need to see science, you can see it for yourself, but is there scientific data backing up what we're talking about right now?
Oh, yeah. So blue wavelength light has been studied extensively. It's called the blue light hazard. It's a photobiological hazard. And when these young players are playing on their baseball fields and they're looking up into these LED bright lights, I am very, very concerned about the impacts on their eyes. There's a picture shown right now. Yes, this is debilitating, and many people will suffer. I can barely look at that picture right there. It is so intense. And the reason we feel it as so intense is because our bodies know that it's dangerous, dangerous light. So we need the FDA to step up and start studying this and start working with the other federal agencies and setting limits on this light.
Okay, so everybody, softlights.org, go there, sign that petition, please help Mark do this. And Mark, I can't thank you enough for educating us. And please do come back on as you have new research or anything else you want to talk to us about, because you're right, excuse me, we do not cover this enough. And so we will be covering much more with you going forward. And so thank you for being on this morning.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right, everyone, we're going to bring on Zoey O'Toole, our publishing coordinator. So at Children's Health Sense, we have a lot of books. And the person behind all those books is Zoey O'Toole. Good morning, Zoey.
Good morning, Polly. I'm glad to be here. First, I want to put in a plug for a book that we published in June. Unplug, a radiologist explores the damage caused by electropollution and how you can prevent it. And the reason why I want to plug that book is because it talks about a lot of the things that Dr. Baker just brought up. And so it's not an entirely new subject to see.
And I have that book, everyone. It's great. And it's one to send to the younger generation for sure. But today we're going to be talking about a different book. And tell us about that.
So yesterday we published a book called The Autism Generation, Understanding the Autism Epidemic from Causes to Solutions. And it was written by Julie Lapidus, who is an autism sibling. She grew up watching her younger brother struggle and her mother finding ways to help him. And they actually succeeded. They got him able to function in a mainstream classroom. And then he was vaccinated for middle school and he regressed again. And so they had to go through the whole process again and find different ways to help him this time. So Julie had a lot of experience right from the start in watching biomedical treatments affecting her sibling with autism. So this was something she was fascinated with, and she's this really, really dedicated researcher. She's been described as part Sherlock Holmes and part Florence Nightingale. And that's actually true. You get her passion right from the start. She is a dedicated researcher, and she was investigating particularly mercury and aluminum. And I'm glad Brian brought up the fact that Secretary Kennedy got the mercury out of the shots, because we've been told over and over and over again that they took the mercury out of the shots back in 2000, right? But yes and no. They took it out of the shots that were officially childhood shots, but the flu vaccines were not childhood shots. So they allowed that to continue. They were mercury shots. At that point, they were all mercury shots, and they've been gradually increasing the percentage of non-mercury shots, but it's been very, very hard to find out what that percentage is. And Julie was able to find out that there were a lot more mercury shots going to pregnant women and children than we thought. And she also found out that the mercury level that people were starting with, the baseline level of mercury that pregnant women are starting with, is much, much higher in the past, or has gotten much, much higher in the past few decades. So everyone is starting out more at risk than they used to. And then you combine that with the aluminum, and you're really, really in trouble.
And Zoe, who do you recommend particularly to be reading this book? So I'm thinking, okay, who would I send that book to? A young mom who's just had a diagnosis?
Absolutely, definitely. Young moms, moms to be, also people who want to help themselves, because Julie does provide solutions and a map to how undoing the biomedical damage that is done by vaccines and other things.
Yeah, and basically navigating when you get a diagnosis of autism, it's overwhelming. You don't know
Right.
where to start. And especially in today's day and age with everything on the internet, false information and true information. So Julie breaks it down in a way that you can understand it, so that you can start to navigate the journey of hell ahead of you.
Right. So we know that there are a lot of things that have helped people in the past, but in some cases they were somewhat dangerous. For
Right.
instance, one of the things that has actually been iffy for a lot of people is chelation. So Julie has investigated all the ways to do that same kind of function, and she provides the safest ways that she knows of in the book, which is very
Okay. So Zoe, how do we get this book? Because we don't actually, do we not have a bookstore yet at Children's Health
We
Event?
don't yet. Yes, we did
coming.
have, and then it's kind of been undone because we're converting store providers essentially.
Right.
So currently you cannot buy it on the CHD website. So you'd have to go to either Amazon or Barnes and Noble or an independent bookseller.
Okay, but coming soon is a CHD bookstore. It's going to make it a lot easier for you all to
Yes.
read books. And
Yes.
and people are still reading books, aren't they? I mean, that'd be a good survey. I hope you all are reading books still. It's better for your
They
eyes.
really should be, especially our books, because we cover all this stuff and it's right there in front of you, and you can, and I try to pick authors who really know their stuff and can explain it to the average human being. So
Okay, so everybody, the new book is The Autism Generation, and honestly, it's written by a sibling, and I don't think there's anyone that know the autism individual better than the siblings. The siblings are an untold story. We need to cover that at some point. But get the book. And Zoe, thank you so much for coming on and telling us about
you're
this.
welcome, Polly.
All right, everybody. Okay, let's bring on Becky. Good morning, Becky. Thank you for waiting. I want to hear about your Don, your husband, and what happened to him.
Okay.
Hello.
Thank you for having me, Polly. I appreciate it. There are so many things that happen now that I'm past all that I remember were so saying in my mind, this is wrong, this is wrong. Everything from the time I got to the hospital, or actually from the time that the paramedics came to the house until he died, it seemed like there were so many things that were wrong that happened to Don, my husband. And it was on July 15th, 2024. It was a Monday, and he was fine. The week before he was fine. That day he was fine. He did everything like as normal. He got up, I fixed him breakfast, and he ate. I had to go to an appointment, doctor's appointment, and I came back. He was on the commode and he could not get up. So I kind of panicked. I should have gone across the street and asked somebody to come help him up, but I called 911. And they got there. The paramedics gave him a EKG and said he was having a heart attack. And Don was talking to me, and we argued with the paramedics. We wanted to go to our hospital, but they refused to take him to the hospital we wanted to go to. And I suggested another hospital, and they refused to go there too. They wanted to bring him all the way down to Orlando, which is about an hour's drive for me. So we argued for 15 minutes, and finally I just gave up and said, okay, take him down there. So he got down there. I was under the impression when they brought him out of my house to go down to the hospital that he was going for heart, because he had congestive heart failure. So that's why they had to take him down to ORMC, because it was the best heart hospital. But when I got down there and got the records, his admittance record on his medical records said the reason for the visit was a traumatic fall and the diagnosis was a skull fracture. And none of that was true. So I have to back up a little bit. On his way down to the hospital on the ER, on the ambulance, the written record from the ambulance, I got all his medical records, said Mr. West is feeling much better now and he's becoming very talkative. And that was the last that I heard about Don until I got down to the hospital, that he was doing much better. And that's the way he always was. He just had to, it was a lot of stress when the paramedics came in. And I think it kind of made his heart act up and maybe even give him a heart attack because it was a lot of commotion. When he got down there, they started giving him scans for his head, which he had basal cell carcinoma on his scalp. And they put him through all kinds of scans. They did a head scan first, and they found what they called a skull fracture. It wasn't a skull fracture, it was the basal cell carcinoma. And then they, since they found the carcinoma on his head, or they thought it was a skull fracture from a fall, I guess they started making things up because I wasn't there to tell them. And they did the full body scan, so they sent him to radiology for that. I think that kind of traumatized him, maybe gave him another heart attack because he knew that wasn't true. He didn't have a skull fracture and he didn't have a traumatic fall. So I think he was just traumatized from all the commotion that was going on. So when I got there that evening, he was knocked out they said they had to give him morphine and Ativan, and that just totally knocked him out. And I said, why did you give him that? And they said, because he was agitated. And my husband just does not get agitated. He's very calm. He's very laid back. And I think it was because they were telling him, putting him through all those scans unnecessarily against his will. He knew he didn't have a traumatic fall and a skull fracture, and they wouldn't believe him. They put him through all those tests anyway, and maybe that agitated his heart, and they said they had to restrain him, put him on Ativan, kind of knock him out. The alarms, after I got there, they kept going off. His blood pressure was really super low. It was like he was dead. And the heart rate was going sky high. So I kept going over to the nurse's station, telling them, his alarm is going off. Can you do something? Give him some medication to correct that. They just came over and turned the alarms off. And that happened about 6 or 7 times. So the last time she came over, I said, can I take him home, or can you I kept asking him all night long, can you put him up in a ICU or put him in a room on the cardiac floor, get him out of the ER so he'll have a cardiac doctor that'll come in and help his heart attack. She said, oh no, it's a traumatic fall and skull fracture. She kept repeating that, and I said, no, that's not what happened at all. He's got heart trouble and he needs to be treated for his heart. Well, they kept saying that, no, that wasn't true. And he had the surgery for his basal cell carcinoma right there in that very hospital years ago. And they had all the records. I don't know why they just didn't push a button and type in Don West and find his doctor. Both of his doctors that did the surgery and worked on him, his cardiologist was there. They could have found all those records, but I don't know why they just miscommunication or something. They didn't check his medical records and find out what the truth was. So he had a, it was just, when I got there, I tried to tell them that they should let me even take them home. If you can't put them in a ICU or get a doctor, a cardiologist to come by and help him because he needs help. And they said, no, there's no rooms anywhere. So I tried to get him to come home with me. She said, no, the only way you get him to come home is to put him, sign a DNR. We'll take everything, all the life support off, deactivate his pacemaker and defibrillator, and then we'll put him on hospice. That's the only way you could take him home. So finally I agreed after hours of thinking about it. I didn't know what else to do. I was by myself. And they were pressuring me under duress to sign the DNR. And I told them I would not sign a DNR because that took everything. I wanted help for him. I wanted them to give him help. And they said, no, there's no more help we can do. He's just going to die. It was just like hopeless. We're not going to do anything for him. So just let him die. It was that simple. We can't do anything for him. So just let him die. And I didn't want that. So they put him on hospice, and the hospice was the same way. I said, this is not a traumatic fall and a skull fracture. They even said brain bleed, but that wasn't even true either. So they kept arguing with me. All the nurses, the doctors, the hospice, they just argued with me and said, no, this is traumatic fall and a skull fracture. And I said, no, it's not, it's heart. And so I got him home. He was that first maybe half an hour after he got home, I had a lot of family there, friends. And Don was talking to me. He was talking to everybody there. They took his mask for the oxygen off, and he was talking. He was communicating. His eyes were lighting up. He was normal, except he was a little bit drugged because they kind of didn't give him the medication right before they transferred him home. So after the last person left, the last family member left that night, I was alone with him. Don tried to get out of bed. He put his feet on the floor. He took all his paraphernalia off, and he got out of bed and he grabbed my arm and he looked me in the eye and he said, Beck, I have to get out of here. And he pointed outside. I have to go. I have to get out of here. And the nurse was behind him, and she heard what he said, but she didn't see his face. And I saw like urgency, like a frantic Beck, I have to get out of here. That's what he called me. I have to leave. And he was very coherent. He wasn't drugged up at that time. All of a sudden, the nurse grabbed his arm, shoved him back in the bed, and said, it's time for his medication now. I have to give him Ativan and morphine. I said, well, he's not in any pain. And they said, well, that's what's on the doctor's list. We have to give it to him every 3 hours. So she shoved him back in bed, put all the tubes back in again, and they told him, or told me, that he would have to have that medication every 3 hours. And he was knocked out, never opened his eyes again. I never got to say goodbye to him, and he died 3 days later.
Becky, this is just an absolutely tragic story. I mean, I don't understand how they can keep saying to you over and over again that he fell and fractured his skull when that categorically did not happen.
Yeah. What happened was, when he was on the commode, I could not lift him up. So he he just scooted onto the floor on his rear end. But he didn't have a traumatic fall. They started ripping off his bandages on his skull and making up stories, I guess, that he had a traumatic fall, and it looked like an old wound. So maybe they thought that I didn't take him to the emergency room or the doctor or hospital, whatever, and get him treated. But he was going 3 times a month. We were going to the doctors, different doctors, for treatment for his basal cell carcinoma he had it right on his forehead. And they ripped off the bandages because it was a pretty big bandage. I changed the bandages every day. And they started making up things. Instead of typing into the computer and finding his records, they said that he had a traumatic fall. And I kept telling him, no, he didn't fall. He did scoot onto the floor from the toilet, but that was only like 1.5 feet. And it wasn't traumatic. I was right there when it happened. So I knew he didn't hit his head and crash and had a back injury from years ago or months ago. He didn't have anything like that. But I guess they thought I wasn't taking care of him and I was trying to kill him or something. I don't know what they thought. I still can't figure it out to this day. But I was taking very good care of my husband. I loved my husband, and he was the best thing in my life. And now he's dead. And I just feel like that the hospital was responsible somehow. I'm not going to sue. I don't believe in suing or anything like that. I just want to have some peace in my heart that somebody will get some benefit from me telling my story, that you always have to go to the hospital with your loved one. Never leave your loved one by themselves in the hospital. Always be with them, because they do things to people that are not patients that are not right, unless there's somebody there to protect them. It's very dangerous going to a hospital.
Becky, you're absolutely right. We've done hundreds of these stories, whether it's through COVID or whatever. And I can tell you that every single person who's told their story will tell you the same thing. You did nothing wrong. This is completely the fault of the hospital. The way they bullied you, the way they overpumped your husband with drugs when he was talking right at the end, and they pushed him back into the bed and drugged him again. How dare they?
Mhm. Yeah, and I just feel so bad now because I was trying to be compliant. I thought they knew what they're doing. They're medical experts. I thought I just need to trust them. And I can't trust them. I learned my lesson. I just can't trust. Not all the medical. I'm not saying every single hospital in the country or the world, or every single medical facility like the EMTs and paramedics. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that particular time, you have to be very careful, be vigilant that you're taking care of your loved one, and stand up and say something if you see something that doesn't look right.
Becky, your story is so important. I'm so sorry about your tragic loss. He looks absolutely amazing. And this will educate people. And more we're exposing the dangers of hospitals. Sadly, it's tragic. And it's really tragic that the doctors and nurses particularly, treating you so badly. It's appalling.
Yeah, it was very heart-wrenching when I tried to tell them to do certain things, and even some incidences where they said to the other nurse there, they did not, that I was trying to overrule the doctor. They accused me of doing that she's uncooperative, and I wasn't. So I just let them do what they wanted to do. I just dropped it and didn't resist anymore because they were saying that I was being obstinate. And so I just let him, I said, okay, do what you want to do. But then I didn't know that he they were out to kill him in the first place because they had certain signs that they were going to put restrictions on him, like they had on the medical records. When I told the nurse, I said, maybe he wants something to eat. And they said, no, there's no food or water. No food or water intravenously or by mouth. So you're going to die in 4 days if you don't have food or water. And he had none. Actually, it was 5 days, but they wouldn't even give him anything to eat or drink.
And Becky, again, we've heard the same story over and over again. So to the people, the viewers watching, this is still going on. This isn't just happening in COVID. This is still the same protocol that's going on. And Becky, Don's story is so important. We won't forget Don, and we will write him on. We have a bus with signatures. We will put his name on there. And we thank you so much for coming on today and telling the story. You're an amazing woman, and you were an amazing wife. And don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Polly. God bless you.
Good to see you. It's good to see you, Becky. All right, everybody. So if you have a story, do contact us, because I think this is how we're going to learn, is to hear these stories out and learn. I mean, over my dead body, am I going to go to hospital literally right now after hearing all these things? Got a couple of things to say to you all. I want to tell you about our Roku channel. Please do use it. It's been built beautifully by our amazing tech team. You can watch us on there, and it's so much better on the big screen. And you can watch all our movies. And we do have Duty to Disobey coming very, very, very shortly. We're just sorting a few technical issues out, and it will be on there. The other thing I want to talk to you all about is our chat. Okay, we've been looking at our chat, and you're all amazing. We love you all very much. We're so grateful for your support. But there have been, over the last month or so, a few comments that are not appropriate. And so we've made the decision that if people come on there and are not kind, now, you can disagree. Of course you can disagree, and you can, to a degree, argue about all your different points of view. That's what the whole thing is about. But if you're going to attack personally our hosts or our amazing long-term viewers on our chat, we are going to remove you. Okay, we're not censoring, we're just going to remove you. If you can't behave nicely and say nice things, and especially things that are untrue and nasty and personal, then we're going to take you down. Okay, so I just thought I'd let you know we've made that decision. I'm really happy about it. So until tomorrow, we're back Financial Rebellion tomorrow morning with Catherine. We've got Twyla on, we've got Renette on, we're all on. It's going to be a big, bouncy, lively show and talking about important things. So we're back then tomorrow. But to our viewers, we love you. Thank you. Pray big, stand firm, never settle. See you tomorrow.
The power we have is the truth.
This is the nation's leading conference.
It's so empowering to be joining together and working for our children.
Coming to CHD was the best decision that I've made probably all year.
It is a new day when senators and representatives want to associate themselves with Children's Health Defense. Why? We're telling the truth, and they know that. And because people are listening to us, and they know that.
To me, health on a political level is the most important subject. We need to raise a healthy generation.
We, the people, are waking up. We are taking back the system.
The federal government's job is not to ensure the stable legal risk for vaccine manufacturers.
Remember, we're a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. I can't say it any better.
We can live to see a better day where people will be healthier and where government and corporations will be forced to be more responsible.
You can't be a decent human being and know what we have now come to learn and turn your back on it and close your eyes.
Okay, we're live. Can you tell us your name, please?
My name's Jeanette.
And this is about your son. How many children do you have?
I've got 2.
So is he your oldest child? Mm-hmm. All right, take us back to, let's go back to when you were pregnant with him. Did you ever have a conversation about vaccinations?
No, years ago I had seen Jenny McCarthy talking about her experience with her son.
So that made me question vaccines, and I started to read a little bit about them, but I'm not educated. I wasn't educated about them as I am now.
So he had a good birth?
He had a good birth.
Was good when he was born?
Mm-hmm.
No problems?
No.
And then he had his Hep B and vitamin K at birth?
No, I refused.
You refused?
Well, I took vitamin K, no Hep B, although I think maybe they gave it to him because they kept pushing it.
So you don't know?
I don't know. I don't think so. I kept telling him I didn't want it, but they really kept pushing it, and then there was a form they gave me that they had marked for me, saying that he had Hep B. And then when I asked them about it, they said no, they didn't give it to him, but who knows? I've heard horror stories of that happening.
And so when did he get his next vaccination?
I believe it was at 2 months. I was doing a modified schedule. I was getting one at a time, and there were some that I refused to get.
So a spaced out schedule?
Yes.
Okay. So was he developing okay up until his MMR?
I'm sorry, what was your question?
Was he developing okay up until...
He was actually quite advanced.
Okay, so tell us about the day when he had his MMR.
When he had his MMR, he was 14 months. The doctor wanted him to get it at 12, but he was sick around his 12-month appointment, so I skipped it until he was better. And he just was really sick. Actually, with each vaccine, he was pretty sick. Fever, inconsolable through the night. The doctor told me that this was all normal and that it would go away. And they did, but with the MMR, it seemed a little worse. He was a little bit more sick, and I'd say within a week, suddenly he lost his eye contact. He was up all night screaming in pain. He wasn't responding to his name. He wasn't smiling. He was stimming. He was spinning and hand flapping, toe walking. He had a couple words before, and he wasn't talking anymore.
And is this the point when you realized this is the vaccinations?
I believed it was.
And so your second child, did you give your second child any vaccinations?
I gave her a couple, but I stopped.
And what's he like? How old is he today?
How old is he?
Yeah.
He's 4.
And how is he doing?
He's fine now. I went the holistic route of treating him, and it took about 2 years, but he's totally normal now.
Really? Okay, yeah. So there's hope there. So what's your message to the young pregnant mum watching today?
Educate yourself. Don't just do what you're told. Ask questions. Listen to your gut. Don't let doctors bully you into doing anything that you don't want to do. It's always okay to say no, and then do your own research, and then go back later if you would like. Listen to your gut and pray to God. Because He'll guide you.
Anything else you want to add?
No. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for telling your story.
This and all CHDTV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.